Welcome to the SaaS Pulse Show. My name is Michael Bertoni, and I'm the founder and CEO of SaaS Talent. And unbelievably excited today. We have an awesome woman, product leader, experience officer in Autura. Her name is Sharada Iyer. She, again, is the Chief Product and Experience Officer at Autura. And Auto Return is now Autura. They are dedicated to elevating the mobility experience, keeping vehicles, people, and communities moving safely. So it's great to have you on the show. Sharada, want to make sure I'm saying it right. Great to have you on the show.
You got it right perfectly. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, so it's awesome to have you here. So what I always like to go through first is I'm super into superheroes. So your backstory, right? So I always like the superhero backstory, right? So, and your backstory is super cool, right? So Sharada is a performance coach. She does Pilates. She does certified Pilates. She could help you mentally. You know, we're probably going to talk later because she could probably help me and everybody listening. She could help you mentally with Pilates. But tell us about your backstory. Tell us about your backstory that got you to Autura.
I mean, born and brought up in India. So when you're part of the Indian household culture, is education comes number one. And I was very fortunate to have parents who were very education oriented, explore the world through that. That was our front and center. And both my parents were in finance. They were both bankers. My dad, investment banker, Forex banker, my mom, commercial banker. Though my mom has a master's in microbiology and she was in research for a while. I know, like she was a trailblazer all herself. And so they're like, the world of computer science was coming up and they're like, we got computer for one of our first houses in our neighborhood. It was our house that had computers. I've been in computers since a very young age, gaming and whatnot. So it just was very natural to get into computer science as my, electives in high school, and then getting into college was engineering.
Nice.
So when I was at school in engineering, already I had cousins and a few others who were exploring higher education outside of India and not just going for work. At the time I was graduating, and around that time, IT had taken significant foothold in India, but the jobs were very mainframe jobs and networking jobs and customer service jobs. I'm like, I don't want to do those things. And I want to explore something outside of what I've known my entire life. So at 21, I left and came to UT.
Right.
And the contrast, though, that I found myself is in India, the schools I went to, very, very fortunate, I went to great schools. I didn't see too much of a difference in number of women or number of men. Of course, there was this narrative of women are going to get married. Why are you getting super highly educated? All of that stuff. But you still saw quite a bit of women in classes. Mm-hmm. I come to UT and I flip it, very few women in my master's program.
Wow.
And I was one of like two in the entire engineering, at AMD that I got hired in their engineering program. So I'm like, oh, this is very interesting. So I was a hardcore hardware engineer. Figured out I'm not an engineering mindset only. I like problem solving, not just being told what the problem is, finding problems.
Sure.
So I figured out, let me go to business school. That's a good pivot. I was still in visa, so it wasn't easy to get a job in any other department just because you're on visa and the visa is tied to engineering. I couldn't just, hey, can I try sales or marketing or something else?
Right.
Wasn't an option. So business school, from business school, corporate strategy, management consulting. That's when I got into product management. It wasn't called that. Right. Very few companies had what product management was, and it started at Google. It wasn't called that, but my background of being able to speak customer, speak data, speak engineering, speak business, really put me in the middle of being able to translate language for so many different stakeholders. So I think it just progressed that way from Accenture to Samsung. I was doing product marketing, integrated marketing. They didn't have product management, so I was sort of the voice there. And I got to Autura because I had worked previously with Craig, the CEO.
Oh, wow.
And he had run Motus, and I had worked with him closely as their product strategist, laying out product vision. And I had come off of being chief product and technology officer at FM, which was after Neiman Marcus. So it was interesting. I mean, when Craig first approached me, I'm like, really? Towing business? What's even happening in this world? Like, I had not done that level of government. I had done education in government with city colleges of Chicago and whatnot. So it was a very interesting challenge that I wanted to take on. And I had not worked at that level of PE-backed company either. It was a small PE. So that's what got me to Autura. And just even the company didn't have a product department. It had everything like jumbled up, one person doing multiple hats sort of thing. Absolutely. They were still in this very early thinking stage of scrappy processes were not scalable. Knowledge was not documented. Every customer couldn't even call it product. It was more service oriented, right? So we were developing it into more substantial standard practices and standard product.
So let me boil this down for everybody listening right now. So if you're a startup entrepreneur, what Sharada has said is she's CTO, she is product, and she is user experience, right? If you could bottle up what she knows in her head and somehow help you a little bit, you'll be better off if you're like a startup company. So she knows how to build the product technically. She knows the product, which is the features, the functionality, the killer features, and the user experience, which is the most important thing these days. Because if people leave your product because it's hard to use, you're done, right? So Sharada, so much to talk about here. I want to understand a little bit about two things, because I know you said you have about 15 minutes. So what is Autura? Oh, I'm saying that Autura. And what is product and experience officer? So explain those two things to the audience so they understand.
So Autura is a software company that offers solutions for what we call vehicle lifecycle management, okay, for government predominantly. But if you let me simplify it for a layman's term, think about Uber for towing. Okay, your car is stuck somewhere, it needs to be towed, you need to call a tower. So there is this whole marketplace happening. Somebody is calling for a tow, somebody's providing the tow, and there is a vehicle that needs to be moved. Often, the people who are calling the tow is actually the municipality. They're calling it because there is an accident, a vehicle is abandoned, so on and so forth. And there is a whole set of rules and that need to be put in place. Wow. And they have contracts with multiple different types of tow companies for different programs. This is quite complex set of movements that happens between departments, agencies, different tow companies, various different fees. Just as you would think about Uber, you have a black car, you have a premium, you have a sharing, all of that stuff. You have here a light, a vehicle, light equipment, medium equipment, heavy duty vehicles, so on and so forth. Wow. Say it is an 18-wheeler flipped, you need a completely different set of equipment versus, funny enough, we learned electric vehicles need a flatbed. You cannot just pull it up and drag it. Right. These kind of nuances have to be put into a system that can understand based on a set of parameters from a vehicle or a location or a situation that the vehicle is in. You connect them with the right tow company, right? That is just the towing part. Then the vehicle goes into an impound lot, which is like warehouse management. You have vehicles and you have real estate space. Which vehicle goes where and how long do they stay? Because it's a game of real estate. If a vehicle is in a parking spot for too long, you're not going to be able to get the value out of that spot, whether it is in a private garage or in an impound lot. And then comes the last end of it is once the vehicle hits that aging of how long it is in a particular spot, and you can't make money out of it, you need to sell it off. Municipalities have very strict rules of auctioning vehicles.
Wow.
You just can't, yeah, they're very strict rules of how you auction it, how often you auction it, what the cost limits are, etc. So we have software for all areas of that across the board, which is why we call it vehicle lifecycle management.
Yeah, and you're obviously your product. You just described the product. That was amazing. In like 5 minutes, you described every feature of the product. Now, experience, right? Another thing, again, features, functionality, killer, got to have great stuff. Now, experience is a little bit UX, user experience. What are you doing there?
So as Chief Product Experience Officer, I have 3 major departments underneath, actually. 4. We are building out the 4th one as well. One is product management, which works very closely. We're building up a design team because there was no in-house design. We've been working with some external designers. So that's the 4th one that is getting built up. Data and analytics, data strategy is a huge part of it. There is a lot of vehicle data here. There's a lot of location data here, when tows are happening, where tows are happening, how long are certain kinds of vehicles sitting in impound, what is getting auctioned. So there's a lot of data strategy involved in it and analytics involved in it that sits within us, because data as a product is a huge aspect as well. And then I also have product enablement, which is this technical part of implementing and onboarding a customer, because every municipality, like I told you, has a very long list of rules that are uniquely just theirs, because every municipality is run for hundreds of years just by themselves. They've created their own stuff. And the commonalities that we have to find to make the product work for them and vice versa. So across the board, one of the most significant thing about product enablement and product management and data strategy all working together is making sure we tell our sales teams who go out there is what is available in the truck for you to sell. We never want sales to go sell what's not in the truck. You don't want to go promise something that we don't have, right? We have to have a very clear value proposition for every customer base, every user in the marketplace. So when we talk about user experience here, we want to be crystal clear about what it can and cannot do and how well it can do it, right? When it comes to especially this B2B business, it's not about pretty. It's about productivity. It's about how quickly can you get information. It's less about nice colors. You have to have a lot more white space in it, actually, because it's about information architecture. And there is so much information on the screen that you don't want it crowded and you want it to be easy. A 911 operator that is actually taking the information from a officer on the road who says, I need a police officer. A 911 operator has 6 monster screens in front of them. Humongous amount of stuff is going on. So anything, if we are just one of those tabs on one of those screens, we have to be very, very aware of how quickly we can get them the information they need. Same thing with impound. You can have 500, 600 vehicles in it. And how do you manage where a vehicle needs to go? How quickly can you check in a vehicle coming in, check out a vehicle going out? So managing the plethora of information in front of a screen, that's the optimization we talk about when it comes to user experience.
Yeah, again, I'm going to reiterate for everybody listening to this right now, if you have the opportunity to talk with Sharada for probably 10 minutes, she will improve your, like if you're a startup founder, if you're listening to this, connect with her. I mean, she's handling every one of these things. It's amazing, Sharada. So again, couple more minutes here. What I really want to understand, a couple things, what I'm curious about is, I think you have a unique product. Are there competitors? Are there competitors in your space? I'm thinking you're custom, you're amazing. They probably built something to do this, but they have a huge niche. So tell me about, is there any competition? What's your differentiation?
Hardly any competition in towing management, which is probably because of, to your point, the complexity of the processes that were involved and how it started as custom software, and we are trying to productize several aspects of it. There is competition in the auction world,
Okay,
because
yeah.
it is a selling and buying kind of marketplace. But I think the opportunity we see is one, connecting end to end. Two, because that's not available in every single place, the connectivity between systems and integration with data when you have to talk one software versus the other, and especially outside software, just becomes cumbersome. And most people in this area know IAA and Copart have been the biggest contractors when it comes to auctioning. The funny thing is they are more real estate play than even software play. They take the cars away from an impound lot of the tow company or the municipality and hold it in their real estate to then auction off. So we are focusing predominantly using software to optimize the processes and simplify that. So when it comes to competition, it is a highly fragmented landscape.
Yeah,
I will tell you. And I think there is tremendous opportunity to connect multiple areas of the workflows and processes with vehicle at the center. Because whether we like it or not, the world we live in, it is a very vehicle-based world.
Sure.
We have built the cities for vehicles, parking lots for vehicles. It's less about humans. It's more about human in a vehicle. Right. And so how do we reduce that? The more you can talk all the vehicles with each other with different workflows. But to answer your question, not all places have competition. Some have, some don't. And just there is fragmentation. We see consolidation happening significantly.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's amazing. So I know we only have a few more minutes. Let me ask one more question, because you have such amazing experience, Sharada. Again, I'm going to reiterate, if you're listening to this, reach out to Sharada. If you could talk to her for 10 or 15 minutes, she'll help you. So in terms of your experience and your, my last question is advice. So what advice would you give people listening right now in terms of, 2 or 3 biggest pieces of advice that you would give, a start, people listening to this, startup founders, solopreneurs, people thinking about building things. What are your thoughts?
Whether it is a startup, mid-size, about to scale, or you're in scaling or super scale, I think one of the biggest things that misses the mark is clearly understanding the problem you're solving for the user.
Love it.
That identifying the biggest pain point. Right. And you don't need to solve the biggest pain point, right? The kind of questions I tend to ask, and I personally love going and talking to users straight in person, not just sending my team out there, is asking, talk to me about the activities you do, and talk to me about which activities take the longest time and which ones are the tedious ones, right? Longest is based on complexity or lots of things you need to do. Tedious is because I need to go to 3 different systems to do shit. Yeah. Right? Very different. So once you're able to understand what their life looks like, day looks like, it's not about your perspective. Product, fundamentally, product and experience is your facilitators of customer and business and engineering. You're not the one to have the my way or the highway perspective. You're a facilitator. It's about mission over ego. So yeah. I would say putting that down on paper, really identifying what your core customers are, what your core problems are, and how do you identify commonalities? Because you can't productize something that is all the time custom and different. Right. That is not sustainable. So my advice would be understand their problems and understand which problems you want to solve for. That has the biggest impact. Only then can you start thinking about scale. Awesome. So Sharada, we jammed everything into this. This was an amazing podcast. Really was. No, this was really good. So you're a wealth of knowledge, I could tell. Again, been a CTO, Chief Product Officer experience. Thanks for being on the show. Let's debrief for the 2 minutes we have, but thanks for being on the show and looking forward to following your journey. Pleasure. Thank you. Appreciate it.